Welcome to another episode of the Let's Talk podcast. Now, if you worked in employer branding, talent acquisition, or HR, you've probably heard the same advice over and over again. Create more content. Get your employees to share their stories. Show candidates what it's really like to work inside your organization. It's all great advice. The problem is that creating content consistently is hard. And I'm sure each and every one of you will agree with me on that. People don't know what to say. They're uncomfortable on camera. Marketing teams don't have the bandwidth. HR teams are already juggling a dozen priorities. The result is that most organizations know they need authentic content, but very few are able to create it consistently. Now, that's exactly what we're going to be talking about in this episode. At Let's Talk, we've been thinking about this challenge for a long time, and it's led us to introduce a completely new capability for organizations across India. India's first AI-powered content multiplication platform powered by VideoMai. And to help us unpack the thinking behind the technology, I'm joined by David, the person behind the platform that powers this capability. Over the years, David's focused on solving one simple but important challenge. How do you make it incredibly easy for people to create authentic video content without needing expensive production, hours of editing, or a dedicated content team? And that thinking is what brought us together. David, it's great to have you here.
It's nice to be here, Brian.
I'm very happy. This is going to be a good conversation for everyone who's actually watching this video. So I'm going to start with the problem. I always start with the problem. What were you seeing in the market that made you think there had to be a better way to create content?
Yeah, the problem statement's really clear, particularly if you're leading talent teams in-house, that it's hard to collect content. It's expensive and time-consuming because you're very reliant on a digital agency, whether you're outsourcing it and it takes time and it is expensive, or you're relying on marketing, and marketing have their own priorities. They're led by consumer sales, not necessarily employer brand. And so unfortunately, the leader of talent acquisition was really stuck in a difficult position, and we wanted to solve that problem. So our North Star was, can we make it easy for someone to collect video content? And we've absolutely achieved that.
You know, they always say that the biggest solutions come from personal experiences. Was there a particular moment where you realized the traditional approach simply wasn't going to scale?
Absolutely. It's simply expensive and time consuming. From my background has been in recruitment. I've been in recruitment since early 2000s, helping organizations secure talent, successfully exited a business in 2015. And it really came from that problem that we had, where we were playing on the fact that recruitment is marketing. And back in 2013, 14, 15, that was very prevalent back then. And social platforms just before then was really starting to emerge. So there was a really nice opportunity because the social platforms really took to video quite well. They still do today. So we just wanted to bring video into everyone's wheelhouse because it exists everywhere all over the world. It doesn't seem like anyone's solved that problem. Culture changes, and it's hard to communicate culture, particularly in a dispersed workforce and when you've got multiple locations. But it is important to communicate culture because people are joining different teams.
Look, I'm glad you said that culture is important. And I think most companies globally know that employee stories build trust. I think that's a known fact now. Maybe 5 years ago, they were still trying to figure that out. But now I don't think it's a mystery. But why do you think so many organizations still struggle to create them consistently? I mean, is it a technology issue, confidence issue, or simply that people just don't have time?
I agree that the market has moved and in the direction to value authentic employee stories. The ones that are slightly unscripted, The ones that are not so polished, where you've got a producer, those hero pieces are important, but real authentic story, being at the coalface of what someone's really doing and them being able to share their own story and leveraging, strategically someone's employer brand, their pillars, the behaviors of those pillars. So having a strategy behind it can really benefit top of the funnel content. It is important to share those stories because if you're able to communicate the functional, emotional, and social outcomes of what it's like to really work within the company, well, then you're going to trigger A and B grade talent to apply for a position as opposed to C grade talent who's likely to be applying for everything. A grade talent is game changing talent. Let's think of that as 1 in 20 hires. But B grade talent, they're really talent that is really considered in where they're applying for a position. So they will research the company. And if a colleague or a company builds a reputation in an authentic way because they have been able to execute an ambassador program or highlight leaders within an organization, well, those A and B grade players, they're really creating a mental list of when they see an opportunity, they're going to apply for those positions. And we all know that with employer brand, if done well, can really move the needle on key metrics that don't make the business money, but certainly save money for the business.
It's very interesting you say that highly produced videos are also very important, and I agree with that too. Highly produced videos, great production. You've got your intros and your outros and all that stuff. It's really good. But look at Instagram right now. The videos or the reels that are really going are the ones that don't have any of that highly production quality behind it. It's the more real, it's the more authentic ones. But somehow or the other, in the corporate world, there is a fear of creating that kind of content. One thing we've seen at Let's Talk is that employees often have amazing stories, but the moment the camera appears, they freeze, or marketing team says, "Oh, this is too simple." Why do you think that happens?
I think it's really hard for employees because not only do they have a personal brand, they really have the company brand that sits over the top of that. And traditionally, film crews have gone into an organization, and usually there's like 2 or 3 people who are either producing, holding a camera, instructing, and there's a lot of pressure for those employees. We've certainly solved that problem by making it a personal video capture experience and really leveraging off the words they can use, their employer brand. I think it's really helpful to have camera aids, which you're able to do through software, whether it be a silhouette or a spirit level that keeps it straight or a teleprompter that has been approved.
Yeah.
Gender neutral language, aligning to what can and can't be said, they're all part of the things that make an employee feel comfortable. If you ask someone to just create some content, the employee really doesn't know if a good looking video is 10 seconds or 5 minutes. So
Yeah.
it's nice as the champion just to have some control to create a script or give some guides and guardrail so that the project that you're executing is successful. But the champion feels like, oh, I've been able to really contribute in a meaningful way. And that wasn't that hard. And what we do find is when they start creating content, that internal advocacy to start with that does happen internally, it does create FOMO for others that do want to highlight what they've done as well. There are also moments that companies can capture or take advantage of when an employee is feeling good to be able to share their story. So we really recommend when we work with companies to hone in on at least 3 moments of an employee's journey. And that might be when they're first starting within the organization, because we know they're in a honeymoon period within the first 30 days, 60 days. As an example, one of your pillars might be collaboration. You can ask a simple question: where has collaboration shown up in the first 30 days? And you get some wonderful stories. It doesn't matter if they're a junior person, whether they be early learning or someone who's quite senior, because they are in the honeymoon period, they will often say, yes, no problem, send me through the link. I'll create that content. A working anniversary is another good moment, whether it be a 12-month or significant milestone, maybe 5 years, 10-year tenure. It's a lot rarer these days, but those moments should be celebrated internally. And whoever is working 10 years within an organization, let's celebrate that and share that. And then on top of a promotion, when you're working within a large organization where there are thousands of people working within the company, people are getting promoted every month and they work hard to get a promotion. And the stories are magical. They're amazing stories. They might have a manager that has really supported them through their development program, or they might have had to go to school outside of work to receive a certification or higher education, or they might have just had a really difficult time in their personal life, but strive so hard to achieve more within the business. And we hear those wonderful stories, and those moments there are they're really happy to share those stories. And those internal stories can really take the edge off talent acquisition, who are always looking externally to get people to apply for positions. Internal mobility is really important for companies to hone in on, but also culture as well. Attrition and retention, they're important metrics to try close the gap on. And you can certainly do that through advocacy
Mm.
within an organization.
Look, I think you've given us so much to think about, and anyone who's listening and watching this podcast right now will say that content is literally sitting all across you and around you in your own organization. It's just a matter of being mindful that hey, there's something that we can definitely pick on, and it doesn't need to be a massive production, or you don't need to boil the ocean over. You just need
Yeah.
to have the one moment to just kind of, let's do this, let's make it quick, let's make it authentic. We just don't need to do a song and dance.
But capturing moments that matter are really important. And within an organization, there's rituals and routines that happen throughout the year. It is like clockwork. Some companies are recruiting a lot of people earlier in the year, might be an early learning or a grad program, might be mid-year that they're having an intake. They could be looking to recruit a lot of people in retail. They could have ongoing campaigns to secure engineers throughout the year. But there are town halls, there are awards nights, there are moments where fun is happening internally, and that's all around communicating culture. So identifying those moments that matter within a company is important. Like it's really important, and companies are doing that all the time. There are people that really care about culture, so tapping into your employee resource groups, which we call ERGs.
Yeah.
There's always a leader, there's always an administrator, and they do seem to be the people that are the biggest champions for those ERGs, but they certainly exist within the business.
Yes.
And that really helps with sharing, if you do tap into your ERGs, the sense of belonging, ethnicity, age, gender. There's usually some sort of D&I component to an ERG, and sharing that sense of a belonging is important. But there are people within an organization that care. So just getting ahead of the curve and having those conversations, you can quickly create a lot of FOMO because people care about those topics. And other people will also want to share about those topics as well. So I think it is hard technically to get a perfect picture that aligns with your brand requirements, aligns with your brand tone. And that's what we've solved at Video My.
Mm.
What I'm sharing here are just playbooks that you could execute to catch a candidate at the right time. It is important that your beautiful looking brand that's worth $1 billion plus, that is famous, that a video recording is aligned to that. You've got digital assets that are really important. And then you have a brand tone that is very important as well. So empowering the champion to have some control and put them in a position where they can actually execute the strategy is something that we've been working really hard at. And it's never going to stop. We're always going to continue to chip away at it. But the lion's share of the problem has been solved through VideoMy.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because one of the biggest issues that both marketing and anybody who is working in the marketing lens, they're constantly worried about how their brand is going to be represented, what's going to be the tone, what's going to be the language. And that's where the fear is as well, that okay, we can't just get them in front of the camera because we really don't know, are they going to stick to the brand guidelines. And if they're going to do it, is it going to be worth the effort? All of those thoughts as well are there.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to move slightly away from the culture. My prediction, and in the next couple of years, video job ads are just going to take off. People are going to stop reading job ads, and you're actually going to be seeing video job ads where people will be watching either their immediate manager or, the HR person actually talking to you. That is what I think is going to take off. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I think it's a natural evolution moving from text into video. I think there's a real opportunity to share the stories around that as well and getting hiring managers to show up. Hiring managers having a voice is important. In the first interview, it's likely the candidate is going to meet the hiring manager. So why not allow that opportunity earlier? And the hiring manager usually leans in because they don't want their time wasted. They do not want to rock up to an interview and have someone in front of them that's not quite right, who's not going to really fit, that really doesn't understand what the role entails or the commercial element of executing the project. So I do feel like it's a natural evolution. I think, again, as I mentioned earlier, to really catch their attention, I don't think it's a silver bullet that a video job ad will naturally attract that A grade or B grade talent. I do feel like it's a number of stories that convinces them over time that enables them to do it. And I just want to pick up on a point a little earlier. It is hard for people to create video content. There's no doubt about that. We see people be slightly nervous, but where the nerves are not are usually salespeople who are always talking to people, marketing people who value video, early learners who press play and watch video and consume video more than anyone else. And within an organization, just looking out for people who, have been part of the arts, whether they're actors or they've been involved in drama. These people, or people who are really active on social, that's where you start. And even if the video doesn't come across great, it's perfectly fine. They're not all supposed to come out well. You can still use other assets, quote cards, blogs. You wouldn't naturally just throw the video out. You've got this beautiful piece of content, authentic, that maybe they filmed in an area that was noisy, or maybe they filmed and they were so nervous that they really did stutter their way through it. But what they said was really meaningful, and you can use that in a different way. You can use it through a quote card and through a blog and still praise the person.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not all lost. I mean, just because a single piece of content is not as per expectations doesn't mean that you can't use the others. And VideoMart provides that opportunity to automatically create those other pieces of content through AI, right? So great segue. There's a lot of conversation around AI. Some people love it. Others worry it's going to make content feel robotic. Where do you think AI genuinely adds value in this scenario?
Well, replacing your marketing content with AI is what people are calling AI slop. If you think it's being created by AI, your candidates are not going to believe it to be true. However, if you create a video like the one that we're creating now, it's meaningful and your candidates are going to believe that it is true.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to elevate your brand amongst the rest. So I think just like COVID and everyone took a giant step to video, they were more okay with the way they sounded and looked on video because they just had to use it.
Yeah.
We're seeing that second wave where there's just this huge adoption of AI slop. So what has risen to the top is authentic employee stories, which plugs directly into what employer brand, recruitment marketing, or talent branders have been talking about for years, that authentic employee content, which is so important.
Correct. It's very happy that you're saying authentic. I get a lot of people telling me that, Brian, if you're going to be doing a podcast, get into a studio, with great lighting. But is what's behind me important or what I'm saying is important? Because for me, this is what authentic is. It doesn't matter. But more importantly is what you say, and the authenticity comes,
Sure.
in part of all of that.
Yeah.
Where Where do
Can
you
I can
think?
I can I just play just can I just jump in there? I
Yeah, yeah,
think
yeah.
we're very uniquely placed though, Brian, yourself and myself. We have, relatively small companies. We work with incredible businesses worldwide, but we're small and our brand requirements are quite flexible. Billion-dollar brands, famous logos, they do have brand requirements. So authentic doesn't need mean it's not perfect. And that's what we've been able to crack the code with Video My. Your branding is really important. Your colors, your fonts, your logos being positioned correctly is really important. The camera aids help. You
Yeah.
will get a beautiful looking video. Would you call it a 10 out of 10 video given a film crew has come in, edited the video, told someone what to say and how to say it? Well, no, it's not a
That's right.
Steven
Steven
Spielberg
Spielberg. Yes.
sort of Steven Spielberg movie, people have moments. I just had one then. I stuttered my way through it. Doesn't mean it can't be used. It's just there's a box that needs to be ticked where branding need to give it the big tick. So yeah, we encourage people not to film from with the fridge in the background or a personal photo in the background. There's playbooks that can be leveraged so that people, can follow instructions. And we just hope that they do. And 9 times out of 10, they do follow those instructions quite correctly. And then even the most challenging environments give it the tick of approval and they get that content out there. It's not too dissimilar to, and you would remember this way back when people were advertising a lot in the newspapers, and when online came, people were freaking out because job ads were just going out so quickly. But the business got quite a bit of confidence after 2 or 3 times of posting their jobs online, and they're like, "Oh, okay, it's perfectly fine. It's not that bad. It's actually as good, if not better. We've got a template here. You've got your logo. You've got the same sort of thing. It's just not going to print. It's going to online. So it's not too dissimilar."
I'm going to say something interesting, and I would like to hear your thoughts about it. Just a little while ago, I said that we have now launched a new capability, which is India's first content multiplication platform. I love it because it's different from simply saying create more content. But what does content multiplication actually mean?
Well, I think it's maximizing your asset, and you can do that in many forms. The different social platforms have different shapes that you could align a video to. There's opportunities to, focus in on a blog content off the back of one video or a group of videos. There's the opportunity to create quote cards. If someone is sharing in a very authentic way their story and it goes for 60 seconds, it's very rare that you just have a few quotes. Usually it's 3 or 4 quotes that you could use, and you could present that as an option for the candidate to share. I think that's the really important thing. You really do need to get your candidate or the person who participated in the project who is sharing their authentic story to then share that content on social. But multiplication means making the most of the asset itself to be able to share that content. And in a day where things have changed, people are searching in a very creative way on what it looks like to join an organization, whether you're using ChatGPT, Gemini, or some other LLM. Creating advocacy is one of the things that LLMs love, blogs and third-party tools. So if you're able to do that in a way where you're able to share that content and publish that content, the LLMs are real content guzzlers. It doesn't matter if it's a quote or it's a full-length video. You're really going to benefit from that as well. So, multiplication means a lot of things. It means having a ranking on GEO. It means catching a candidate's attention in the way they are showing up to the socials, giving the champion the flexibility to communicate what it's really like to be there, the candidate themselves, because they don't always have to share a video. They can share other forms of content as well. So I think multiplication means flexibility for the employer.
I'll also add to that. I think multiplication is also the importance of saving time, because doing everything from scratch and trying to create multiple pieces of content is very time consuming. And nobody is only doing one thing at the moment, they're doing multiple things at the moment. So giving yourself that slight flexibility that, hey, I don't have to recreate this. something that's already there is helping me build on that, I think is really, really important. At Let's Talk, we often say employer branding isn't built through campaigns. It's built through consistency. How does content multiplication help organizations stay visible without constantly starting from scratch, is what I was just saying. Have you seen organizations completely change how they're perceived, how they're perceived rather, simply because they become more consistent?
Absolutely. What By consistently asking your employees to share the content, you're fueling the top of the funnel content. So effectively, you have an always on employer brand. So you're always going to be on the minds of candidates that you're looking to attract. If you're able to show up, then you'll be able to beat your competitors. You don't have to have the most famous brand because everyone will apply for that. But if you're a smaller business, an unrecognized brand, say you're an organization that's a pharmaceutical person and you're not known for tech, or you're not known for finance and you've got roles in HQ, but you can really stand out and catch the attention of these people to be a desirable place to work just by executing your top of the funnel strategy.
Yeah. It's very important from an India perspective as well, because everyone would agree with me on this that India does not have a quantity problem. You will get hundreds of applications that come through. It is the importance over here is to be attracting the right kind of people and being able to speak to an audience that would work best within your organization. So that, I think, from a content multiplication platform works really well. But I'm going to be a bit selfish, and I'm going to ask you a question about Let's Talk. When we
Sure.
first started talking about bringing VideoMai to India, what excited you most about working with Let's Talk?
Well, the people, shared values, a common goal. We're both big fans of employer brand. Both companies have integrity, and we're both very innovative in our approach as well. So, that first and foremost needed to really tick the box. And I just think the incredible opportunity, knowing the market well and being first to market, is a terrific opportunity. And we couldn't do it ourselves, so partnering with like-minded people in Let's Talk was a no-brainer for us.
The future of HR, marketing, and employer branding is similar to this way. It's really evolving in a big way. And thank you for your trust in Let's Talk, because that's exactly what we believe. We believe that VideoMai is a game changer, and any organization who would want to create content that would help them build their brand, build their teams, because employer branding used to sit with one team at one point, right? Now it touches HR, talent acquisition, marketing, internal comms, and leadership. I think the product, the platform, the capability that VideoMai brings now helps to actually bring everybody into one room and being able to do this together. Do you think these functions are finally starting to come together? What do the organizations that do this well have in common?
Ones that do this well are ones that have a strategy. They really know who they are as an organization. They're not creating content for content's sake. They're not just trying to put themselves out there. They really want to attract A and B grade talent, the talent that they really want to attract to the organization. They're leveraging their employer brand. So the content has purpose. When content is shared on social, there's a call to action, there's UTMs, there's tracking, there's engagement. They're looking at that. They're thinking about how they can do things better the next time. The skilled workers that sit within internal comms is not too dissimilar to talent brand, which I group recruitment marketing and employee brand to be quite similar. They do often work together quite well. But internal comms, they're communicating culture. They're more focused inward, whereas employee brand and recruitment marketing tend to be focused externally to attract the right talent. And it's really simple. They're both communicating culture,
Yeah.
and that's where they come together. So they're very skilled people within an organization. And if they align to the strategy, they don't have to work together, but they could. And when they do, it's a really nice mix because internal comms are really good at convincing employees to communicate. And internal comms are usually trying to elevate executive communication so that executives are more present. So they're very skilled at being able to communicate. And employee branders that have a marketing background are also equally skilled. So it does fuse together really, really nicely.
Well, great, because now I'm going to say this is something that I said in the beginning, in my opening, that at Let's Talk, we've introduced India's first AI-powered content multiplication platform and powered by VideoMind. So rather than me explaining it, I'd love you to tell everyone listening what this platform actually is, what makes it different, and why you believe it's going to change the way organizations create employer brand content.
Yeah. So video mode is addressing a pretty difficult problem. If anyone's tried to execute a video project themselves, it's really difficult because a video is hard to handle, whether you're using a WhatsApp or Dropbox or texting or an internal messaging system. If you're a big business, you have branding requirements. The quality of video is something that you really do need to address. It needs to be excellent. And people don't have time to edit. It just takes too long. So VideoMy really addresses these problems by saving time and saving money by not having to outsource that. The intelligence where it comes through is that the platform is littered with AI, and AI enables us to have really clever and automated workflows so that your day to day is not disrupted, so that you can get on to do what you need to do without having to worry about capturing content, editing the content, getting it approved, shipping the content. It's all done for you, all in one platform.
And I'll add to that, Let's Talk will support organizations through a fully managed service, making it easy for HR and employer branding teams to create employee stories, leadership content, recruitment marketing campaigns, and social media content without needing to build an in-house production capability. So we're there standing with you while you create this content and you can make it bigger. But before we wrap up, David, 5 years from now, what do you think the best employer brands will be doing that most organizations aren't doing today?
Gee, that's a good question. I did not know you were going to ask me that question, Brian. It is remarkable the impact that AI has had on the market, not just with marketing communication, but more broadly. I think the rise of employee stories will truly be there. It has to be there because everything is automated. It's so easy to apply for a position these days. So employer brand will really rise to be a true asset of the business as a strategy, not just a nice to have.
Well, that's a good way to finish this. Thank you, David, for joining me. I'm loving the fact that employer branding is not something that is just going to be a norm. It's not a nice to have. It is going to be a very important aspect of what we do. I recently saw on LinkedIn that OpenAI is looking for a employer branding person. And you ask yourself this question, why would a company that is already so famous looking for an employer branding person? They wouldn't need to do that because everybody knows OpenAI, ChatGPT, right? But if they are looking for an employer branding person, I can tell you something, that the needle is moving. One thing really stands out from this conversation. Organizations have never been short of great stories. They've simply been short of an easy way to tell them. That's why we're so excited about this capability bringing to the market, especially to the Indian market. The Let's Talk AI-powered content multiplication platform powered by VideoMind isn't about replacing people with AI, if you're thinking about that. It's about making it easier for employees, leaders, organizations to share authentic stories at scale, while Let's Talk manages the strategy, the content, and the execution. So if your organization is looking for a smarter way to build employer branding, talent marketing, and leadership visibility through authentic content, we'd love to show you what's possible. Thanks for listening to the Let's Talk podcast. Thank you, David, for being here. We'll see you in the next episode.